freedom to be human, to realize sacredness, to transgress and to love. Welcome to the Sadiq Space. Hey there. Welcome to the Sadiq Space podcast. I'm John Sadiq. It's lovely to be here with you. Today we explore living from your ordinary life, from the true light that is within you, and also what gets in our way. This talk was given in front of a live audience, and while it centres around the story of my own experience of actually dying and coming back from a terrible illness, as well as the path of awakening that I undertook in the lead up to this axial event, in reality, this talk looks at how we as a species might live and create the world in a more authentic and meaningful way without becoming someone other than ourselves. That we and who we really are what is required of us in this moment, here and now. If you'd like to know more about our work, please visit www.authenticliving.life. Well, it's lovely to be here. It's just a really nice opportunity always when we can get together in a way that's kind of about something deeper, about something real. I think sometimes we think that sort of spiritual life is an add-on. You know, you do spiritual bits, you've got your work, you've got your spiritual bit, you've got your, whatever. But actually, it's all the spiritual bit. Isn't it, really, kind of thing, or we can apply ourselves in that way. But we tend to compartmentalize our lives, and then that's when the stress gets in and kind of craziness sort of happens. I thought I'd kind of talk to you a little bit. I have this terrible habit of kind of writing notes to give talks and then absolutely completely ignoring what's on the piece of paper. So we'll see if that happens tonight. I don't think I've ever given a talk where that hasn't happened. So at some point I'll just go like that. What's really important to say is whenever I do some kind of public event of any kind, is that I'm not trying to convince you of anything. It's really important that I double, triple underline that. I'm not asking you to believe in anything, nor am I trying to sell you anything or convince you that my idea should supersede something of yours. That would be insane. Really. All I've ever really been interested in is what's real. How do we live? And how do we live to the absolute best of our potential as human beings? And of course, if you ask questions like that, so I'm already going to veer off the piece of paper now, you ask questions like, who am I and what am I here for? Those sound like simple questions, but if you ask those with true sincerity, very quickly it sets you apart from the rest of the world. Very quickly you see that we're living in crazy, crazy ways. And it can be hard to know what to do about it. And as this is my 40th year of being a meditator. I was just saying before, things have changed, I think, since I last spoke here. But if not, then maybe I just didn't say anything last time because it had only just happened. I run a little thing called Authentic Living, which is exactly about what those words describe. I'm just interested in meeting people who want to live their lives authentically and to really try to understand what that means. As I said, people tend to live compartmentalized lives that we also try to live when we don't know any better. We try to live through identities. We try to live through, we are programmed as children by our family values and so on. This is what you do to get fed. This is what you do to get love. From the first minute you come out of the womb, that you are in contract. And so that sets itself at a cellular level into the body. And then further conditioning is added to that. school and so on and so on. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but we come to believe that that's who we are. At some point we say, this is me. This is who I am. But actually we're a product of that collection of things at that point. And, you know, the journey is to kind of lose our innocence and then regain it. That's the story of Parsifal. That's, you know, the sacred story the world over. We just forget to do the refining our innocence part that comes next because it's not threaded through our society. There's no clues to point us. That has gone now. We used to search for it in the religious, but of course that had such limitations. That's why it's so gratifying to talk to a group of people like you, because while religion may offer maps and doorways to something more truthful, they tend to be somebody else's maps. And the only map that we really we can live by is our own. We have to kind of find the map of our own life. And that's what my work's about, really, is how we do that. Not I figure it out and tell you how to do it, because that would be me trying to impose something on you, but walking alongside people as best I can to kind of hopefully offer support and space and love along the way. And maybe some of the things that one has encountered oneself can actually help with that. So the change that happened, actually, because we do need to go there, don't we, is that since I last spoke here, I think I did that thing of dying and then coming back. And I mean it absolutely literally in that I got really ill. I was traveling. We live half the time in India and half the time in England. And I just arrived to go and see Abba, my wife here, and got off the plane. And unbeknownst to me, for years in my gallbladder was this abscess. And it burst that night. And it destroyed most of my liver, poisoned my entire system, and we didn't know what it was for days. And by the time I finally got to hospital, we found this amazing doctor, and Dr. Trahan, and then he got me into intensive care. He basically said to Abba, don't go, because he's not going to make it through the night. That was it. And somehow I remembered my training, which was to be present. That if I went into the fear of death, oh my God, I've wasted my life. Oh, how terrible this is for me right now. If I went into those stories, I would actually miss the last minutes of my life. You could actually miss the last minutes of your life by getting caught in a story. So I decided to kind of come out of that and to kind of allow myself to kind of almost like kind of sink into meditation. But at the same time, the body was so weakened that there was nothing left of me, quite honestly. And I went. And it was, I mean, I'm sure you've come across these stories. It was the love. It was the light. And it was like the friend that I had always wanted to meet my entire life. And I didn't have to do anything to earn that. I was sufficient and I was complete. And yet I knew I was still needed by one person at least. And in that place of completion, I don't know what else to call it, because it's not death, it's life itself. I was spoken to, really clearly spoken to, and I can't tell you whether it was a male voice or a female voice. Certainly wasn't a doctor or a nurse. And I was just basically told to leave my old work and then to just spend my time talking to people now. And before I knew it, I was awake. And quite amazingly, I got out of bed the next day and the infection was gone. Not completely gone, but at a manageable level. And then I had to come back to England and have surgery and things like that.
Didn't you go through the tunnel and see the light and all that? Didn't you have a journey?
Well, there wasn't a journey. There was just pure love and pure light, basically. So it wasn't a going through. It was a kind of almost like an opening into, I suppose, for me. Yeah, and so that's why I do this work. But I don't expect anybody to believe that. It's not actually that interesting in a way. It is, but it's not, because it doesn't do anything apart from I know something that somebody will go, oh, well, it's just chemicals in your brain. It's just your brain closing down or whatever, you will get that. And I'm not going to argue with somebody who comes at me in that way. I'll just go, okay, whatever. As I was saying, it's quite odd to kind of know what it is that you're meant to do, because most people are like, well, what's my purpose in life? And I've just been told what to do, so here I am, as it were. And but before that, it was interesting because life had taken a terrible turn around about 2012, and even though I was a meditator and I was very successful in my old work, writing books and doing radio and stuff like that, I was still living through this conditioning that I was talking about, still living through identity and believing that if only I tried harder, if only I pushed more, if only I could do one more meditation intensive and face the wall kind of 11 hours a day, I'll break through something and then I'll become a better person. And I don't have to be me anymore. I don't have to be this, or I'll add that right thing to myself, and then maybe somebody would love me. Maybe I could find love. That's what I was really looking for. I was looking for love. I wasn't looking for spiritual truth. I just wanted my mum to love me, actually. I just wanted mother love. And it got to such a point that, there was nowhere else to go. I mean, it was just utter. I mean, if you know, when you've been pushing up against something, it feels so tight. It's quite easy to tell the difference between kind of what I call pain body and kind of, living in presence, because the pain body side of it, or the kind of the condition side, is so tight, and then we push even harder and it gets even tighter, and we can't find a way through. And we just try moving these blocks of identity around, or maybe if I change my partner, maybe if I get another job, maybe if I had more money. And we try to seek completion through those things. If I had more power, if I had more something. And I just couldn't support that anymore. And I decided to actually let go of it all and see if sort of meditation and what was actually written in spiritual books was not just a pile of, spiritual doo-doo, but actually could lead me somewhere proper if I committed to it. And things began to change. It's quite interesting. It feels like the near-death experience was a kind of completion of that process that took place over a couple of years. And first of all, I had to kind of clean up my psychology. So I started doing lots of inner child work. And then a technique called focusing, which allows you to directly experience your emotions, because most people don't experience their emotions at all. Particularly in our Western society, we don't actually experience our emotions. What we tend to do is walk around with our arms out like this, armoured, in case we should ever feel our emotions, because we think they're going to destroy us. And so what we live in fear of is the story of our emotion, which is invented in our head, rather than actually meeting our natural biofeedback system, which shows us what's going on in the world. And that kind of almost brings us back around to what's supposed to be on this piece of paper, in a way. No, not quite honestly now. Honestly, I'm sorry for that detour. The thing is that we've elevated the limited mind, the frontal lobe in our culture to such an extent that we think it can do everything. We think it's the frontal lobe that's going to get us awakened. We think if we just learn enough things that we'll kind of find all the things that we want. But we're much more than that. The frontal lobe, or the what we call the ordinary mind, is a collection of things, but it only exists because we have consciousness. There can be no mind if there's no consciousness. And consciousness only exists because of life force. So, straight away you can see that the mind is a tertiary thing. It's not first, but we put it first. So much so that we don't actually access our faculties at all. I was reading something today. There's been some real kind of interest in the heart recently. And you know that the brain and the head produces an electrical field. The field around the heart is 60 times larger than the field around the head. Our heart is 60 times bigger than our head, quite honestly, in its electromagnetic field, which means right now, we are all completely intermingled in this room. Absolutely. That's why you can kind of know something's up. You might call it your intuition or your greater intelligence, but we don't really access that. And also, it's been found that in the heart and in the stomach, there are actually brain cells. And, people say, oh, that's just redundant old stuff that we don't use anymore. And it's a different intelligence which we just don't access. So just imagine, if you could actually kind of, allow that to sort of take place, but we're scared of being seen as being kooks. We're scared of being seen as being kind of, crazy, whatever people. And we just have to let that be, I think. I think we're all old enough now to not really care too much what people think. So maybe we should just let ourselves feel things and, wear more purple. And when I am old, I shall wear purple, But the thing with learning to access the heart, which was quite honestly the thing that changed everything for me when things just couldn't move anymore, Like I say, anybody looking from outside would think, oh, there's a successful person. And yet I was so lonely and so unhappy and so cut off from everything. And I didn't love life in any way. And it was only when I began to, there's this kind of nonsense phrase that we have, which is all you've got to do is love yourself. I mean, it's just utter bullshit, utter and complete, because no one tells you how to. No one says, this is how you love yourself. All they say is, all you got to do is love yourself. And then the mind kicks in and goes, that's it. And you feel like a bit like when you're a child in school and the maths teacher's looking over you, and you do that thing of rolling your eyes up, pretending to think. And that's it. We don't go anywhere. Or we put on a spiritual guise and to look like we're doing something. I'm into crystals and I'm into this and I'm into that. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But if we're just trying on another identity, we're not really going anywhere. We're not doing anything for anybody else. It's about our most treasured thing that we have, our life itself. And so I had to turn back and actually meet my heart. Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within. And there's a picture of him. I used to joke because my mum was an Irish Catholic. So we had this kind of really chocolate boxy picture of Jesus holding his sacred heart. I think it was out of a magazine. And my mum got it when she was 17. It was on our wall at home. And it looked like something off a chocolate box. And I used to call it the sacred strawberry of Jesus. And then she like that and slapped me on the head, But there he is holding his heart. It's literally going, for God's sake, there it is, kind of thing. All you got to do is get in touch with this thing. And we're just like, yeah, well, So
it's called the Sacred Heart.
It is the Sacred Heart, yeah. Not the sacred strawberry. But ours looked like a sacred strawberry, you see. But, I know. But it was that turn. There was nowhere else to go. And actually, when you're backed into a corner, there was only two directions. And what we often do, not often, but we're seeing a lot of it at the moment. If you can't live through your form anymore, we try to leap into space. And that's why there's this massive upturn in suicide at the moment. Don't know if you've noticed. And self-harm And I work a lot with schools, and there's such a elevation in kids kind of harming themselves at the moment, and mental health difficulties for kids. I was in a school this afternoon. I kind of do bits of kind of consultancy work with schools using the stuff we're talking about. And now 1 in every 2 medical appointments for kids is mental health related, honestly. And 1 in every 4 for adults is mental health related. And there's 500,000 children awaiting psychiatric care at the moment, or mental health support, and not getting it right now. So we can carry on doing what we do, but look where it's leading us. And so when we reach the end of our form, there's nowhere to go, we try to leap. We either try to leap into something, and if it doesn't pick us up, if that won't support us anymore, then we just kind of either stagger on till we actually just die, or we, leap into a death of a kind, or hopelessness, or absolute malaise in our lives. And, as Oscar Wilde said, we take up collecting things. Or we can leap in the other direction and turn within. Actually go back into the inner space. And an Indian teacher that I really loved said, Nisarg Dutt, I don't know if you've heard of Nisarg Dutt, but he wrote, it's an incredible book of his teachings. He didn't write it. He was kind of just a speaker. And he said, the mind creates the abyss, but the heart crosses it. And this is true. This is true. The heart can cross any abyss. You must know what it's like. You're in an argument with your partner or a friend, and and there seems to be almost no resolution to it at all. And then somehow your heart just opens a bit towards each other, and the whole thing just kind of falls away, just like that. And then you're just laughing. 1 minute you're about to kill each other. It's divorce. It's all over. It's the end. Never again, you absolute sod, da-da-da-da-da. And then you're laughing. I mean, it just shows that all this stuff we take so seriously means absolutely nothing once the heart kicks in. And yet we can actually choose that rather than waiting till we're kind of, well, I'll take the dog, you take the kids. And it's been my experience, and again, I'm not trying to convince you anything, but it's just with kind of learning to live this way, more heartfully, shall we say, I've learned that that the heart sees better than the eye. Because if we look with our eye, and by eye I mean our conditioned eye, then what we're actually doing is we think we're seeing the truth. We don't even know what we're seeing, quite honestly. Like right now, for example, we think we can see each other. We can't see each other at all. What we're actually seeing is light reflecting off a surface. We will never see each other. It's insane. We see light reflected, and it's all dependent on the little bits in the eye, what we see. And that may be different for all of us. But on a condition level, if I'm conditioned one way and you're conditioned another, then everything I'm saying right now goes into the filter of your conditioning and will be translated into what you think I mean. And if it was the other way, it would be that. And that's why people kind of form into tribes of like egoic tribes of, well, these are our politics, this is our religion, this is this. We kind of seek kind of company in those value systems that seem to kind of resonate with us, but it's built out of garbage. It's built out of nothing. It's not built out of being or spirit or love or heart. It's built out of, this stuff in the head. And everything that we look at also is filtered through that. So we just look and we will separate from things. Oh, that's not for me. That's not for me. Oh, no, you don't like football, therefore I can't be your friend. It's ridiculous things. Ridiculous things. We divide the world up according to our conditioning. But when we begin to move down into our bodies, then we access the greater intelligence of life, because life is within us. And if we begin to kind of meet our feelings with kind of kindness, and even just a simple thing like just putting your hand on your heart, which is something I do with kids in school, I just get them to put their hands on their hearts, brings you out of your head almost straight away. I invite you to just have a see what that does for you. You know, you don't have to, of course. There's no having to anything. You see, and even just that bit of intimacy with yourself is quite an incredible thing. And I've been known to do it, you know, I do it when I'm out shopping. And, you know, you can do this at any moment and it can help you just kind of ground yourself. And of course we have to watch out because, you know, our emotions or what we think is our emotions can also be product of our conditioning. So we might think we feel certain things. And of course that fits with the story of kind of like this little me voice in our head. Oh, well, you know, my story, it's always been so sad and it's been like this. I certainly had a very strong me story. This is who I am sort of story. And most people do. And so we have to kind of notice that it's there. You can't get rid of that, but you kind of notice that it's there. And just by kind of connecting to the heart, we can begin to see that it's not us, that there's a space between us, that we can, you know, we don't have to move into that dualistic state, as it were, our programming. We start to kind of get ourselves back. And I don't know if you've thought about this, because we talked about the Sacred Heart of Jesus, but in Sanskrit, there's a beautiful word, hridaya, which means the sacred heart or the spiritual heart. And because this has been my work for as long as what the other stuff I was doing, I started meditating when I was 14. I knew at age 6 that I needed to meditate. I just couldn't get away with it. And I wouldn't know how to, but amazingly, when I was 14, this kind of book fell in my lap and I began from there. And I've kind of been literally kind of researching this my entire life. Though it didn't do me any good until about 5 years ago, which is quite interesting. But we have 3 hearts. We have 3 distinct hearts. And so one heart leads to the other heart. And this will be the meditation that we do tonight, the meditation of the 3 hearts. So you have your physical heart, and you can actually feel that. And it's a fact that you have a physical heart. Otherwise, you know, you'd be lying down rather than sitting in that chair. And then, of course, the second you connect to your physical heart, even by putting your hand on your heart or bringing your felt sense to it, you become aware of your emotional heart. And there it is, just like that. There's your emotional heart. And then I don't know if you've ever done that thing with meditation where you listen to the spaces between the sounds, or you notice the spaces in things. But if you begin to see the spaces in your emotions, so in between the emotional feeling, or even behind it, you get a sense of that kind of sense of consciousness behind the feeling, so that the feelings are still there. They're not destroyed, or, you know, we're not trying to push our thoughts away and silence our head. We're not trying to get rid of our emotions. We're just trying to find the proper order of things. And if we move into consciousness, then we see there's a stillness behind the feelings. And that stillness is the hridayam. That's the source of life itself. That's presence. God, if you want to call it that. But you don't have to, of course. Life, the source, whatever. It's not something to believe in. It's not something that we have to add to ourselves in any way. And it's not away from you. You've been living this the whole time. There's not been a moment of your existence where you have been separate from the love that is. And it's right inside you. You know, it's like the musk deer. It kind of wanders around looking for this smell that it thinks it can smell, looking outside itself. You're making me cry now, Babu. And yet the smell's within it. And here we are. And yet, because we believe in so many things, and because we want to be so many things, we're not actually doing anything. We're not. Imagine if we took this heart and started seeing from this heart and we took it into our business. Imagine if we took this heart, this true heart, which you're not doing anything. Notice you're not doing anything. We haven't even meditated yet. Just by following through from your physical heart, your emotional heart, and into the Hridayam. And you can learn that you learn to just remain. You make a choice to remain with this, and it slips away, and you just come back. And over time, we think we have to go to 100%, but because I work with businesses a lot, so I've got this analogy that actually all we're after is a controlling stock in our businesses. I work with Manchester Chamber of Commerce, so you only need to be in presence 51% of the time. That gives you 49% of absolute messing about, monkeying about and being a crazy person, and still you're on the road to, awakening, quite honestly. Because this is what that's all awakening is, isn't it? It's for awareness of the heart to know itself, for the truth of life in us to know itself. And there's nowhere to go because you're it. You've always been it, and you will always be it. And this whole body, your life, and everything is emanating from the source of life right now. And there's nothing to believe in. It's a heck of a thing, but it's not even a thing. So imagine if we ran our politics this way, our educational system. What if we met our partners like this? What if we just go shopping in Sainsbury's? Let's go now and go and, buy grapes or something, and we just kind of walking past each other in the aisles like this. It would be a completely different world. It would be a completely different world. And yet there's nothing to do. I don't know, I think that sounds like the end of the talk to me, quite honestly, because there is absolutely nothing to do. There's no spiritual journey to make. You might need to clean up your psychology a bit, because if you've been very tight for a long time, then the conditioning can be very, very tough. And it seems to take a lot of effort at first to kind of begin opening that up. And at first we think we're trying to change it and get rid of it and things like that. But actually all we need to do is open some space. And if we don't open the space, life will do it for us. Life is our spiritual teacher. No matter if you have a teacher or not, you have always had a spiritual teacher, and that's your own life. And if we're conscious, then it presents itself one way. And if we're not conscious, it presents itself as suffering. Always. So, people dying on us or leaving, change happening, we'll take personally as if we're losing something, because we're not actually in the sort of spacious awareness of what's happening. But when consciousness begins to kind of manifest to become a more permanent state within us, then it's not like we don't grieve when somebody dies. We had a dear friend die just a month ago. It's not like we don't grieve, but we see it for what it actually is as well, which is just a change of state, actually. And having been there and come back again, there's nothing to fear from that. Apart from there's nothing wrong with loving our lives, these lives, and actually really living them and loving them. And of course, we're going to have an attachment to that because that's part of the human deal. And so, of course, that's what we grieve for. We grieve for the person, because the person isn't to be thrown away. The person is to be loved. But that a person illuminated from within by true spirit, if you want to call it that, or by the movement of life within themselves, so that they know their own illumination, that's incredible. And it's not beyond anybody. It's got nothing to do with your wealth, nothing to do with your education, nothing to do with how you were brought up, nothing to do with what spiritual course you've done, what religion you belong to. None of it matters, because we're all produced by life itself. And so we just begin to access that. So it'd be really lovely if we meditated. I don't know if you want 5 minutes to do loos and things like that, and then we could meditate. Does that sound okay? And just a note, we're hoping that I can get out and about and start holding spaces and retreats again from here on out. The Light That Is has been showing me another way that we might work, and so please do let us know if you would be interested, and also let us know where you are and if you can help us gather in person. We're looking to work outside of the corporate shape that has taken over so much of what passes for spirituality and creativity in our times. And as well as that, we're also looking for some support for this podcast so that we can get messages such as this out and reach more people and support more people. So please do get in touch if that resonates for you and you would like to help us. Please note, we only work with people and organisations and companies that we feel are clean, and this includes their money and wider connections. The days of brokenness, compromise and inauthenticity stop with each of us who decide that this is it. Also, if you feel this way, we'd love to talk with you on this podcast, so please do get in touch if this is you. We'd love to open up this space to more of you here. Much love, take care of yourself, and see you next month.